podcast about Gemini Movies. I'm your host, Alice, and first, co-host, introduce yourself.
Do you want to add your pronouns today?
Yeah, I'm your host, Alice. Pronouns see it.
Okay. I'm Ludovico. My pronouns are they, them. And we have a guest today. Who are you?
Nice to join y'all. My name is Willa. My pronouns are she, her.
Okay. Glad to have our first guest in the Twin Movies history. We had a guest on our former podcast, but you're a first one on this one.
Oh, that's such a distinct honor. Thanks so much. I'm really stoked to chat with y'all, and I really enjoyed watching the movies as a pairing.
That's good, because it would sure would be a pain if you had to suffer through two bad movies. Or uninteresting ones.
No, I honestly thought they were fascinating. Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to talk over you.
No, just finish your sentence.
Yeah, I honestly thought they were fascinating. Still, in a weird way, perhaps an unfortunate way, still really relevant in America's current political throes. But yeah, I thought there was a ton of stuff to dig into that struck me, honestly.
Okay, so let's go to our show and tell segment before we start getting into the meats.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, Alice, do you want to start?
Yeah. So for show and tell, let me just look up. I have to look up the name of the thing.
Okay.
So for my show and tell, I have the DLC for the game Susan. This is it's like a game from 2020 or something, like a couple years ago. It's political simulation where you take control of a president of a country heavily inspired by Eastern European Balkan countries. The specific DLC is making you Sazenherder of specifically the leader of another country, which is the king of a country that's inspired much more by the Netherlands and Southern Europe. And it's interesting because the core game is about dealing with dictatorship and trying to reconstruct to various things that are being inspired by Southern European and Eastern European politics and history and family. While this game is much more about taking hold of a constitutional monarchy, a monarchy inspired by Netherlands, Germany, stuff like that. So it puts you on purpose in the different thing from kind of Eastern European inspired setting to a much more Central European inspired setting of US monarchy, and makes you decide, do you want to be I won't say a bad king or a good king, because kings are bad, but specifically what decisions you want to do, what things you want to do, and how those decisions have to deal with their own history of the fixed country doing. It's an interesting thematic context too, because it's very much a game about memory and history and dealing with the actual politics of the land you live in, and this is more about dealing with the actual politics of the land you live in a system that's fundamentally just falling apart and going down, which I find very interesting, giving our context history. But I think
it sure sounds like a unusual game.
Yeah, it's the core game. The core game plays basically take decisions like a political simulator alongside other things. There's a lot of power stabbing, backstabbing. It's a very interesting game. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Willa, do you want to do the second segment?
Yeah, no, thank you for explaining some of the context around the DLC for what you've been playing and versus the core gameplay. I hope that you continue enjoying the Fall of the Empire. But yeah, my girlfriend's parents visited us recently. They live pretty far from us, so it was kind of a fun occasion. And after we did all of our activities for the day and we were just kind of winding down in their hotel room, we watched Cocaine Bear, directed by Elizabeth Banks. And
right.
I definitely I live in Los Angeles, so I see all the marketing for the new TV shows, the new movies. I don't watch as much stuff as I used to, but I still feel pretty tuned in to the entertainment industry and everything that's coming out just by virtue of living in Los Angeles, having to drive everywhere, take public transit, and just bear witness to all the billboards. So I saw a lot of marketing around Cocaine Bear. And, it was pretty on the nose. It was a bear snorting cocaine in a big cloud. And I didn't think too much of it. I never went out of my way to watch it. It wasn't until recently my parents watched it that they mentioned it to me and said that I'd really like it. And in my head, I'm thinking, well, I mean, it sounds interesting, but I can't really imagine what direction a filmmaker would take this idea in to make it really compelling. But oh my gosh, I was blown away. My expectations were thoroughly exceeded.
Wow.
It was based on a true story of some member of a criminal outfit moving a lot of cocaine across U.S. borders, and a technique they would do is that they would be in the plane, and knowing that the plane would get seized, they would toss all of their, in this instance, it was like packages of cocaine, like, into the woods, and then they would go retrieve it later. But the person doing that died before landing, so there was just a ton of unmarked cocaine in, I'm pretty sure it was Georgia, but in like the Georgian wilderness in the southeastern United States, or the southeastern part of the land known as the United States. And it's set in the 80s. So from then on, you have all these other interested parties that are, for one reason or another, going into the woods. Some are going specifically to track down the cocaine. Some are there for other reasons and have unfortunate run-ins with a bear that gets into a giant stash of cocaine, and chaos ensues. It's really campy. The cinematography is excellent. The soundtrack is amazing. The writing is really, really good. There's so much I could say about it that it would probably have like its own podcast episode. Super fun movie. If you haven't checked it out, get some buddies, and I would watch it with friends again for sure. It's a really fun time.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I've already been kind of on board with watching that someday. So I'm glad to hear that there's some people that are really into it after watching it.
Yeah, you'll enjoy it.
Cool. So I guess let's get into the big stuff. So yeah, my thing is I bought a new DJ controller and I've been like having fun with that mostly. It's like a pretty beginner level thing, but I'm having a lot of fun with it, and like I get along well with this new model, and it's really fun to like finally be able to get the mixes running and like experiment with stuff. So yeah.
Oh, that's exciting. So is it like a Hercules type of device? Something that...
Yeah, it's a Hercules.
Oh, nice! Okay, cool. I'll catch you in Boiler Room.
Maybe someday. So yeah, I guess let's get to the main segments now that I got that out of my system. My segments are usually pretty short, I notice. I don't usually have a lot to say about the things I watch or do.
Besides the one time the construction company was annoying you.
Yeah, once I talked a long time about that, I think. They're still there, by the way.
Let's go anyway.
They have been there for 2 years, like over 2 years now.
2 years? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, next to my house. Yeah, it's amazing. So, movies. Mm-hmm. So usually we would have a segment that like takes us back in time, that brings us into the age. Mm-hmm. But I think if you don't know about like the era from like 1935 to 1945, I think you should like maybe look up some stuff, maybe read some Wikipedia articles, maybe read a book.
A couple pretty massive global events happening in that decade for sure.
Yeah. I guess the major context for these two is that young Mr. Lincoln is like came out after the play for Abe Lincoln in Illinois came out. So it was like a Broadway theater play, Abe Lincoln in Illinois, before it became a movie.
Oh.
And then, yeah, and one of the essays I read basically states that young Mr. Lincoln was made to like get ahead of the curve before Abe Lincoln in Illinois, the movie, comes out.
That makes sense, especially seeing Daryl F. Zanuck's name attached to this movie. That tracks.
There's like a famous Republican producer attached to this too.
Yeah.
It's pretty complicated, actually. Like the essays I read talk a lot about if this is Confederate propaganda or not. Not Confederate. If this is Republican propaganda because of the like election in 1940.
Oh,
at least young Mr. Lincoln, yeah.
I think that totally comes through. It's so real, especially in young Mr. Lincoln. It's like it's very nostalgic. Off rip.
Yeah, they go really into that pastoral, bourgeois, idyllic stuff from like 19th century. Yeah, but that's about all the historical context that we need to add, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's get cracking. Let's start with young Mr. Lincoln and cast and acting. So what order do we want to take? Let's start with our guest every time.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, you get the honor.
Thanks, yeah. I'm in such esteemed company. That's really cool. I think when it came to the casting of young Mr. Lincoln, the first thing I noticed is just how old Abe Lincoln looks in this movie. I don't remember off the top of my head like what year he was actually born in, but seeing the actor right away, I was like, oh, okay. I mean, this man's probably had a pretty long acting career. And, you know, despite the title, Young Mr. Lincoln, like, it struck me right away, like, just how aged and weathered he looked. Especially considering that it's after, like, the movie starts after the death of, oh my gosh, what is her name? I wrote it down.
Oh yeah, the woman he was apparently in love with.
Yeah,
that actually existed. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's Anne Routledge. So in Young Mr. Lincoln, Anne Routledge is already dead, and so he's already, you know, it's situated in like a very specific time period, and then without getting too far into the other movie, Abe Lincoln, Illinois looked even older. And Anne Routledge is alive in that film. And, like, the other common thread and thing that I noticed immediately in Young Mr. Lincoln is just the age gap between the man and the woman. But I guess, you know, it is also historically accurate to the time.
Yeah, I guess it does make sense in that context.
Right. Weird, but true.
Yeah. I didn't actually think about that, but it makes a lot of sense. I'm just so used to watching old movies, so every time they say it, yeah, this young lad, and it's like a 35 or 40-year-old guy, I'm like, yeah, sure.
Listen, that's young for like the 30s. He did not die of the bubonic plague or something.
Yeah.
He did have it, though.
What I noticed about the cast and acting was mostly that Henry Fonda was pretty attractive at that time. The guy who plays Abe Lincoln, he's not bad.
Oh no, he's definitely handsome. Like I was like, okay, like I see the stately, like classic American look that this guy has, and he really does look like him.
Yeah, both of these are like pretty good lookalikes.
Mm-hmm.
Alice, what did you think of cast and acting?
The most thing I focus is mostly Harry Fonda's Lincoln, because he does look very like Lincoln. He sounds like Lincoln. It's like a barely like I guess like classical Hollywood performance where he's just like giving it out, like, oh, yeah, I'm just Lincoln. He's saying the Lincoln words. Yeah, that's very much like a very like stoic performance that I think is like very done in a movie. I otherwise felt very bored in like the first half for reasons we talk about. Like they were like, besides that, I feel like the acting's like finer. There's like a lot of performances that are like just finer. They're trying to keep the historicalness of the movie, which is sometimes not correct. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna mention some inaccuracies.
Yeah, I do like, I'll say this, the guy that plays the Zaz in the second half of Young Mr. Lincoln, incredibly funny guy, is doing not the Zaz, the Pasakusa guy, is like...
the other lawyer. Yeah. He's like a super foppish villain.
He's just kind of hamming it up, and it's very entertaining to watch, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Right, this reminds me, Fonda does play a weird Lincoln, because I don't know if this... Like the essay said, this is about authoritarian, this is like Fordian, but like this Lincoln is very sly, this is not like this like cool Lincoln.
Oh, definitely.
He's gonna make a joke and like he's gonna like make an argument that's like really smart, and he's gonna look cool while doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a very cool guy performance.
Even in that penultimate scene, at the very end when they finally, when he basically breaks the plaintiff into giving a confession, it felt very much like, almost like Sherlock, like he's just so much smarter than everyone else and knows how to leverage that against people, even though his character is still rooted in like these very, I think, strong ideals. Like there was a few shots that I screen captured throughout watching, and the way that they frame him in the beginning with like that book underneath his arm, it was like, oh, this is our guy. This is our smart, like, nice guy. But by the end of the movie, like, I think that slyness is more salient.
Yeah, that's very well put. This actually leads well into our second segment later. But first, we're going to talk about the cast and acting of Abe Lincoln in Illinois.
Yeah.
So, what did you think, Willow?
I was so shook because I'm like, dang, he got older. I'm like I know that, it was actually really interesting hearing y'all flag that, in these older movies, like it was pretty common for, like more elderly characters to refer to people like in their 30s and 40s as the youth. And it makes sense, especially like given where lifespans and things were at the time, and people's value kind of being tethered to how much they can produce or yield, especially under capitalism, under like fledgling capitalism at that time.
Yeah, I think the studio system also had something to do with it, because they like used stars for like a very long time if they were guys, but not so long if they were women.
Yes, so true.
Yeah.
There was also a transitional period of like people going from like vaudeville or like theater to like Hollywood, like the early days.
Yeah, this is still like the first decade of like sound movies in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, no.
So there's a lot of turnout of like old stars, new stars, and all that shit.
I think y'all are both dead on. Like, especially like I flagged the RKO intro, but before the movie started, I was like, oh dang, like yeah, we're classic studio era here.
Yeah, I didn't actually know about them really. I think I saw the logo before, but I didn't know it was like one of those classic old studios.
Yeah,
that's fascinating because like a lot. I don't watch a ton of movies this old. Like I love going back and enjoying like movies from the 80s and the 90s, sometimes even the 70s or 60s. But it's been a while since I sat down and watched a movie from this era, and I feel like I was able to understand some of the context more because of like my film history classes that I took at university here. like
That's very
RKO,
useful.
Daryl
Yeah.
Alexander. Yeah, like I was like, oh dang, like I've read about these guys before, and I've written about things that they've made. Like I'm pretty sure, and someone listening might correct me, but I'm pretty certain that Daryl F. Zanuck was the reason why Grapes of Wrath blew up and got so big, and that movie literally led to like a revolution in U.S. agriculture and like farm workers' rights and how agriculture exists within the government and the public. Like that man did a lot, and to I don't know. I'm not speaking on who he was like ethically or morally. Like I don't remember enough about him, but I know he was a huge player. And so seeing RKO, and that was for young Mr. Lincoln, but then seeing RKO in Abe Lincoln, Illinois, I was like, oh dang, like okay, like the America is strong here.
Yeah, it's me.
And
These
that
are
was
probably the most American movies we watched here so far on the podcast. Yeah.
oh certainly like it was immediately apparent. Like even with like something that I flagged immediately in the opening scene of the movie. Abe Lincoln is sitting by the fire and enjoying a book, and kind of speaking to like his intelligent nature and how he's like kind of mystified to be like this smart, capable hero type. But his dad or the elderly man in that scene was really not down with him reading. He was like, nah, you need to go find more money and you gotta work. And then he did. And that's kind of like what sets the movie off. But I noticed that pretty
Yeah,
fast.
yeah. We're gonna talk about that in plot, but that's like a large
sorry.
part of this movie.
Yeah.
Like just Lincoln getting forced to accept his destiny. That's Abe Lincoln in Illinois.
It's
in a
literally the
nutshell.
Halo Zone. It's hilarious. Anyway.
Yeah, he's going through it. He's constantly like rejecting his fate and getting pushed on by other people. It's wild.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We'll get into all that.
Okay, can I go with the talk about the acting?
Yeah.
Two things. Some in like certain aspects, I think the actor for Abe Lincoln in Abe Lincoln in Illinois, even though he's less famous alone, looks even more like Lincoln really, just because
Yeah.
But yeah, his performance is good. It's better like a performance stuck on like, I guess aviism, so like just saying here iconic able I'm one hand or but it's perfectly fine. It works fine. Gives like thematic performance enough. The other thing is there's an old man that's like in the movie for like 20 minutes or something. The guy's just fucking hilarious.
Yeah, there's another old. Both of these movies basically have some old man that just are perfect 1930s old man actors.
Like I looked this up.
Oh no! Please continue, Alex. My bad.
No, it's I looked this up because a lot of the characters in this are based off historical people, and the old man is not. They just made up some like old salsa man guy that's just yells like a fucking like little no fucking got some man. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think they also cast a guy who was known like for playing grumpy old man.
Yeah,
like this was his typecasting. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else, Alice?
It's I think the performance in general like are very like work for what the movie's doing. Like they are very much like set in like the tradition of like this era of like Hollywood, like 30s, 40s, 50s, like historical, for that things. So like it sort of sounds a bit awkward, but like in a way,
a lot of this is stilted nowadays.
Yeah,
that's the word I'd use as well. Stilted.
But in a way that now because this was done so much that's now just become like its own form of like weird nostalgia. Like it's weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall the acting is like fine in both movies. I feel like.
Yeah. What do I have in my notes? Raymond Massey. We didn't do the actor call today, but we're not gonna do that because we gotta save some time.
Yeah.
We're already
got
gonna
speed
be
around
over
this.
time. Raymond Massey is pretty dry and burdened. Like he's not like the sly ape. He's playing like I was chosen to be the goat ape. Yeah.
No, definitely.
Yeah.
Because even it's kind of cool to watch the acting develop through the movie as like the plot ramps up too. Because in the beginning, like y'all mentioned, like he is kind of just like down for the ride and very much taking on like other people's destiny, the things that they need and working toward it. And the acting in like that first fight scene, or in the initial fight scene, I was watching and I was like, dang, like he's really delivering between like the long monologue sequences and like kind of just having these long sequences and like doing the stunt acting as well all themselves. I imagine it was fun to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, good performances overall in both of these movies for the time. Okay, Young Mr. Lincoln plot.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say? What's good and bad about the story, or like, what is this story? Willem.
I liked that young Mr. Lincoln felt contained. It felt a lot smaller. Like the narrative was almost, I think, a little easier to follow and had less gaps to fill in. Because in Abe Lincoln, Illinois, they cover so much ground in about the same runtime. And I thought it was interesting that they kind of dialed into one specific part of Abraham Lincoln's life, like specifically his law career. Because, you know, I think at least growing up in the U.S. and like being subjected to the American educational system, I remember learning about Honest Abe, and it was like a offhanded thing that people would mention, like, oh yeah, like he was a lawyer and then he became president. So I thought it was an interesting approach that they really like dialed in and like kind of contained it. And even though Abe Lincoln, Illinois is the movie based on the play, this one kind of gave me some shades of that in just the overall structure.
Yeah, especially the trial part is very stage play.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. Alice?
I think it's interesting focusing on like a certain moment. For me, the thing is the first part of the movie feels a bit like not boring, but it's a bit too aggrandizing because it's doing like Lincoln hagiography very obviously. So like you got set up. Oh, Lincoln's doing this. Lincoln's doing this. People love him. He's this very courageous figure. And like it's setting up beat. For the second half was much more interesting, but the issue is like a lot of those beats are just like, hey, Lincoln's a cool guy. Like I get it. At the same time, it's like so full of that like gives me a bit of this tiredness. But
they beat you over the head with it for sure.
Yeah, the second.
Yeah.
The second half was much more.
It's a lot.
Yeah. The second half is much more interesting when it's just doing like a legal procedural in a way that I find interesting for like. I'm so used to like biopics and like historical movies always on like so-called great men being set in like a certain formula that I think it's a bit refreshing that like this goes a bit in like, oh, this is technically a genre movie, like a legal drama by the second half. I think the second half is very enjoyable for what it's doing. There's like a very like play influence. Of course, I like the back and forth between Lincoln and that. I think that's very interesting. The last thing I also say is the ending of this movie killed me, kinda. The fucking like, sorry, but it's a bit too American car for me. Where like it's just like
when they turned the patriotism slider up to 11 for a moment.
It's just like I remember like I was watching with this Lulu and like not to find the past. That's like a movie.
Executive producer press.
Yeah, executive producer press. But yeah, I was watching this with like I was watching this in like a movie group and like I remember like just like seeing the ending. It was just like I was like feeling like I was taking psychic damage because the movie's like the second half is like mostly a normal legal drama and then he turns it like.
And then he became a legend.
Sort of
basically.
Lincoln statue thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's interesting structurally as well for the most part, even if I'm not fully into all the parts of what it's doing, but it's an interesting structure nonetheless. Do you have anything, Ludo?
Yeah. As the French cahier essay points out, there basically is no plot until the murder happens. Like, there's just like a series of vignettes to show us how cool Abe Lincoln is.
Yeah.
But from the point on there's a murder, the movie actually gets kind of good, and then the trial is very good.
Yeah.
What do we have? Oh, slavery and the Civil War basically get alluded to at best.
Oh yeah, they barely touched on it.
They like.
Yeah.
It's like. This is the thing, you don't actually know if they saw some black people, which I don't know if it's actually black people. Like black actors of like people in blackface.
I saw stills by now, and they're definitely black people. They're not people in blackface.
Thankfully that progressed for the time.
They're in shot so shortly, you can't make out if they're really, when you watch the movie. And with the times, you never know.
Yeah.
Like 1940 and 39.
Yeah.
The dissonance is crazy because, in both movies, they really emphasize how, Abe Lincoln's so pragmatic, he's so invested in justice, he wants everything equitable, but then there are, like, these glaring human rights issues, colonization, imperialism happening, like, in the background.
Yeah. It's never really brought up because this is about how Abe Lincoln is a cool guy.
Yeah, he's really cool.
He's gonna solve the case.
He did it, man. He solved the murder. He Columboed it.
Yeah, he's basically Detective Conan at this point. No, yeah, I think that's about all there is to it.
Yeah.
Abe Lincoln, Illinois. Plot.
Oh my. I kind of had some similar feelings about the beginning. In the beginning, I felt it was just a lot of Abe Lincoln is the sickest guy. He's the coolest dude in town. He can wrestle a pig out the mud. He can chop a tree the fastest. And he can kick ass. I'm like, all right, that's our man. And it started so... It kind of felt very American Dream. Just this honest kid, this honest 35-year-old kid with a knack for reading and a passion for equity and justice and making sure that everything is right.
And he knows how to catch a pig.
And he can catch a pig damn good. Like, it was like the movie covered like just so much more ground so much faster that it almost felt more mythological. And even though like there are a lot of elements to it that make it feel theatrical and like the stage play that precedes it, it felt bigger. And I wonder if that had to do with like the budget and potentially RKO funding, because it felt like that they could do a lot, even though I guess it was still situated in one place the whole time. And like I'm thinking about what we were talking about earlier at the end of Young Mr. Lincoln, where it's like he's been kind of like forced to accept all these things kind of thrown upon him. He looked like he was being shipped off to his death after winning the election, which I guess in a way he was. And the Viking like the Viking funeral of it all was fascinating.
Did y'all notice that both of these movies have prominent scenes shot on balconies?
Oh, that is a cool detail.
Both of these movies have like this moment of like, hey, the callback. Do you know what's coming up in season 2?
Do you know how the story ends?
Yeah, basically. But both of these movies engage in a lot of. Do you know how the story ends?
Yeah.
What did y'all think?
Alice?
I think in terms of the plot, so actually it's much more like just the basic Lincoln does thing, goes to it's following much more like historical linearity instead of just like following like a single instance. Like most of the historical movies are like historical biopics about like so-called great manner. I think the first half, while being that, is much more enjoyable, mostly because the acting is like much more like campion moments. But I do think there's a similar moment of like it's at the end of the day just hierarchy in terms of this. I think the plot is structured so in interesting ways. There are like a lot of moments. It's like this movie, like the way it frames American history, it's like the thing I think is the scene where like Lincoln is like, yeah, I don't want to kill like indigenous people, but and then basically is like, yeah, and then they just took the fucking comedic duck scene.
Yeah. There's just that mention of like going to fight indigenous people with the militia, which he doesn't end up doing. But it just comes out of nowhere in like a comedic scene. That's true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's really dark.
It's really fucking dark. Like there's like very much this like tonal this, not tonal this, but like I guess like we're talking about that in the message thing, like not in like the themes thing, but the movie wants to be like this grand historical thing. The movie is and wants to be this historical thing about like, oh, Abe Lincoln, this great man, is prepared the defeated the Confederates, prepared the Union, and then there's little moments of fiction that like has to do with the actual history, the actual Mexican complicated history of like those moments. It is interesting that it shows that Lincoln was like not always like 100% for like abolition. That was like there was like a lot of moments of like pragmatism. So I say that's good for the era. At the same time, there's a lot of moments of just pure fiction in terms of like that.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that, our American correspondent?
Oh, absolutely. Like the way that it's just kind of like these like horrible acts of violence just kind of like referred to very flippantly. Like there was a similar allusion in Young Mr. Lincoln where he's talking to those two men when we're kind of introduced to him like handling legal disputes, and obviously with much lower stakes because it wasn't about murder. It was just like destruction of property or property damages being owed to someone. But he is kind of like, in like an intimidating way, describing this moment during the Black Hawk War. His words. I don't know how people would actually refer to it now, but in his words, like the Black Hawk War, and he took two people and like clapped their heads together, and yeah, it's weird how it kind of just serves as like a backdrop. They don't really go into it. It's pretty brutal and flippant. That was so weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of it's time moments, definitely.
Yeah. I do think I think structuralized it's a base of a plot that mostly works well in the context of what it's doing, with like a lot of just fiction. The scene where, like, as I said, like last thing, the scene where they do the Lincoln Douglas debate is very funny because I'm pretty sure they just invent a bunch of like insults for it.
Yeah, apparently it's not as accurate to the actual debate from like what executive producer press could find at the moment.
Yeah.
Mm.
But I don't care enough, actually.
Well, anyway.
To know if he exactly said those insults.
Yeah, I don't need to know if like somebody said actually cited Shakespeare or whatever, but anyway, teams.
Yeah. Let's go back to Young Mr. Lincoln and teams. Oh, no, I actually didn't say my plot thing.
I was going to say, we got to hear Ludovico's ideas.
Yeah, Alice is like pushing me ahead.
Wow, fucked up.
So Abe is driven against his will to become president, suffering from success, just like DJ Khaled. That's basically all I have.
Suffering from success is crazy.
Yeah. But that's kind of what's happening, right? Like the entire movie is like, oh, I don't really want to become president, and someone goes, oh, you're really good at this shit, and then he, okay, I will do it. And then at the end he's president, and he's like, oh, I must carry this great burden with me now. It's all very, the pathos is like going through that movie. It's weird. It's a different flavor of patriotism, I feel.
No, literally, it's like, even if it's difficult to be of service to your country, you gotta find a way. You gotta do it and step up.
Yeah, he's basically become like a martyr in a way at the end of the Illinois one.
Yeah, that's how it was framed. Literally being shipped off to his death once he left Illinois.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You had a point there.
there's like a very like question like what's the fucking term like salvation like martyrdom, yeah, like iemand zo te weten.
Yeah. Okay, now we can go to teams. What did you think, Willa, to young Mr. Lincoln's teams?
Oh my gosh. Honestly, in terms of... I feel like between both movies, there were a lot of like similar themes in, like devout patriotism, like the pursuit of justice, and this idea that the American experiment is an inherently like just pursuit and a just endeavor. Like especially in young Mr. Lincoln, like, oh look, y'all, like the legal system works, when in reality it obviously doesn't at all. And even though historically it's rooted in such an old time, old to like relative to the present, like 200 years ago, almost just shy of 200 years ago, the flaws that we're seeing today are like still there. But it's developed. This movie is one of the pieces of media that I think, one of the thousands of pieces of media that kind of cultivate this idea and commitment, this zeal to the way America works and is supposed to work. Because look, we had Honest Abe, and he did his thing, and he was able to find the truth in these systems and these circumstances. And yeah, he just felt like a very good old American boy the whole time, and begrudgingly took on his responsibility, even though it was really complicated, and navigated this really complex case with pragmatism, oftentimes very stoic, and he knew when to turn it on, when to exert the most pressure to ultimately like figure it out. So a lot of like faith and like mythologizing? A lot of faith in mythologizing of this person.
Your film studies definitely show, because you're getting to a lot of the like same conclusions as that like 1972 cahiers, French like Marxist journal comes.
Oh yeah, you gotta send me that essay. Man sounds like he's on to something there.
Yeah, because like some of the points here, which I noted from this, is remythologizing Lincoln also remythologized capitalism and the American project.
Wow.
Yes. No, literally.
And then and this is one of the flaws of the piece, but I'm gonna say it here because it's hilarious.
I'm so in.
When they talk about Lincoln exerting power, they often talk about his castrating power.
His castrating. Okay, but like he really,
because like the reading
that's a great,
is it's like French Freudian reading, a lot of it.
But that honestly feels like the term, because in the movie he's not doing this to women. It's almost always like to other men. Yeah, and like. At that point, to take power away from men, to emasculate them, like, it is castrating. With this, obviously, like, binary lens of, like, gender and stuff.
It's not fully incorrect, totally. It's just like that. I'm going to give another example of that essay now, because it's even funnier. Just to, like, showcase that essay has some issues with, like, 70s Freudian, like, psychoanalyst interpretations. So there's the line. Lincoln does not wield the phallus; he becomes the phallus.
That's amazing.
And then I was like, phallus. Yeah, like I get what you mean. He's a big guy and he's like imposing, but holy shit, Freudian psychoanalysis.
The man that became The man that became phallus. I need that written down.
Oh,
I guess it is written down.
But yeah, we're gonna link all these essays in the description so everybody can read them up.
Yeah.
Oh, heck yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay, do you want to add anything, or do we go to Alice?
No, I think I said my piece. I'm really excited to hear from it.
Okay. So, Alice, teams.
Yeah. It's like it's very much like I said before. This is very much like the first time we're setting up the myth of Lincoln. So it's very much like on the slave, he's doing that. His partner dies. Feels sad for that. Is very much just like very stoic, emotional guy that cares a lot about people, that wants to do things. He comes into town. The town is like semi-corrupt. He must care. This is like very much setting up the themes of like American like freedom and liberty and like fighting against corruption for the mercenary and stuff like that. The second half, like mentioned, is very much like this belief that the American system is always going to get things corrected, because like those errors are not systematic. They're individualized. So like there's just like a bad prosecutor that doesn't believe in the case, that doesn't believe that they're innocent, and like this guy represents. It's very interesting because like it's a thing I notice often with this American stuff for somebody that's not American. Like the systems are individualized, but figures are systematized. So like Lincoln is this belief that there's a systematic ritual, that like there's always going to be freedom, there's going to be justice, you're always going to be safer.
He basically gets to be both. He gets to be freedom and like justice, who like exerts power and takes freedom away.
Yeah. So like it's very much like I've said, very like American car at points where it's just like this like image of Lincoln as this representative of like the American spirit and like the innocence. Also, like this is not related to the theme, but one of the weirdest like changes in like the historical basis of this case is like the earliest case involved like one guy. They were not brothers or anything.
Wait, I actually reread it, and it's two guys, but they were not brothers. Yeah.
Okay.
The source for that is the J. Smyth, Young Mr. Lincoln essay that I will also link.
Okay. So that makes more sense. Okay, but yeah, it's definitely a lot of that. So I want to.
Yeah, they rewrite that part basically to make it Lincoln look more like American, supporting the American family by helping out like brothers, and like the audience can relate better than if it was just two guys.
There's also like
so it's like very emotionally manipulative, basically making us side with Lincoln automatically. Basically,
there's also like there's also part like the part like he goes into like the like I guess political meeting, like everyone's like, wow, this Lincoln guy can do this like him as like an outsider. The other thing is like primarily like the other thing is primarily going back to the endings. The ending is like this like explosive like I've said, the ending is like too American for me, but it's very much this thing of like, oh, the American spirit lives on. We won. We did it with it. Mm-hmm. The justice, victory, freedom, we won. Let's fucking get some American music. Like this combination of like the setting up of like, it's very much like Lincoln the myth, Lincoln representative, and then the idea that this idea is one, which is very fucking funny. Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird because it's definitely not end of history moment they're living in when this movie happens.
Wow.
But the movie very much acts like America has already like won the battle of ideals and ideas.
Yeah,
like they had it solved at that point.
It's like, last thing I'll say, it's very much like very like defeating people with facts and logic, because it's like, oh, with the good speech, with this like charismatic discourse, Lincoln just wins them all, which is like fucking very funny.
Yeah. So what I have is Lincoln is the coolest motherfucker.
So
and America rules.
Yes.
The law is basically God, and Abe is its prophet.
So real.
Like the law is ordained by God, and like Abe is just declaring the will of God. Is basically what's happening.
I like that you connected. No, I like that you pointed out the religious tie-in. I think that's very present in everything at that time, but especially like this plot line, this movie.
Yeah, because
Also-
the Kaye piece points out that like the way he solves the case is by basically doing a magic trick, like pulling a book out of under his hat.
Yeah,
and like
'cause
this performance basically convinces everybody. Like, yeah, he knows it. He brought justice, even though it's just a cheap trick.
no, literally, it was kind of like a Hail Mary because he was about to walk away.
Yeah, it's very revealing that like the justice system is just basically who can give the best tell the better story with better performance.
Yeah.
Like the movie doesn't know that it's depicting this, but it's really depicting this.
Yes.
No, there's something that Alice said that I want to really dial in on. It mentioned that there's flaws with individuals, not the system, or the flaws are individuals are flawed and the system is okay. What exactly did you say, Alice? I really liked when you mentioned that, and I felt it was very relevant to this.
Yeah, it's always one of those things like I noticed this, like a lot of American media even now. It's like the systems are individualized, so it's like always like so-called like bad apples or elements. But there's also this like double thing where like the British of like American ideas are systemized in like a metaphoric way. It's like the bad people in the system are fallible individuals, but the idea that the system is fallible like whole like good bit is gonna save you is fallible put as like the systematic idea that's like Axel 2 and stuff like that. Though.
Look, the only thing that can defeat an evil lawyer is a good lawyer with a gun.
Damn.
That's basically it.
Wait. Yeah, I think you kind of summed it up perfectly in that. That was awesome.
Cool. Time to move on. Abe Lincoln, Illinois. What are the teams here? Willow.
I think in this one, I feel like it was like more tragic. I think because we're watching. I feel like we're kind of watching the boy become the man. You know, it starts with him pretty humbly, like helping these guys just kind of take the pigs down the river and wrestling a pig out the mud. But then, escalates so, like, trust in him escalates so quickly. Like, from him getting enlisted to help count votes and tabulate votes to literally winning the election, ultimately winning the election. We're seeing him kind of fall apart in that as well. Like, it was probably also the makeup that made him look older by the end of the movie, but his face looked more gaunt and sunken. His delivery was not there. In the ending, he almost looks like Joe Biden. How he's kind of standing there, getting like whisked away, and like just kind of kind of half-heartedly waving to the masses, and they're all still going crazy. So. Seeing like the slow degradation of a boy, we see the slow degradation of a man that started as a boy becoming a man. I'm tripping myself up, but I think you'll understand what I'm getting at. We're seeing him fall apart as the responsibility and the stakes. We see him fall apart as the responsibility grows and the stakes get higher.
Yeah, that's really great acted out. Yeah.
But yeah,
that the movie can contain that.
I also felt like that, and we can talk about this more with like the soundtrack as well, but like the music pairings with this also played into how this one was much more about like legend making and kind of retelling this story about Lincoln being kind of awesome and spectacular in a very larger than life sense.
Yeah. I guess the Broadway connections become like more apparent there. Or it's like about the spectacle too.
Yeah, honestly. Like it was a lot more like relational, I think, like with him and the other characters too.
That's true. Yeah, that's what I'm going to talk about in my teams. But I think Alice kind of has that thing that kind of aligns with your thing, where it kind of just has the hero's journey in it before it was written, just because like that's a pattern that sometimes recurs.
Yeah, it was the mold. And they took that. I'm glad that Alice brought that up because, it caught that that's the mold of the time. And they kind of took this story and made it fit that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Alice?
yeah, it's very much like the classical hero genre formula. So like, Lincoln goes up, he then leaves because of there's like a task of development. Then he pays in, and then he becomes Luke Skywalker. Like he becomes the president.
Yeah.
And that's kind of this thing. There's very much like that hero genre element. This is interesting because it all ties back to like mythologizing about the fate of the American president. In like ways that are like very much like non-American media, which I find interesting. But yeah, in general, alongside that, this is very much obviously like related to World War II. Really, very much like you can say a bit in Young Mr. Lincoln, but like this is very much more there to like using the metaphor of like this civil war as like this thing of like all the war that is coming.
Yeah.
So yeah. In parts it's a bit confusing because, like I mentioned, like the actual history that happens, but like there's very much this combination of like American like mythologizing that's combined with like this idea like, oh, we need to do something about this war, which is interesting about that, and about like this upcoming thing that's like the Confederates just like that ties with, like the real life stuff, which is like also just interesting. But yeah, it's very much a lot of the same elements, a lot of the elements of like American greatness, American beliefs that the system is like correct, like things the system can be changed alongside that, and like elements of like as well like the use of the Lincoln Lagos debate of society, like this debate that will bring like the truth about what the American spirit and belief is. Like it ties back to a lot.
Yeah.
It ties back to like a lot of stuff in Young Mr. Lincoln, but also it's like some new elements. There was that fucking line. What's that fucking line, Nudo? That's fucking like scared both of us because it was so fucking ominous.
Oh yeah, the candidates that Lincoln debates. At some point, he like suggests that they become the terror of the entire world.
So fucking.
And me and Alice just probably same brainwave, like, oh, you mean the shit that actually happened? Do you see it coming, huh? You
that moment when it did.
Because, like, at the time when this movie came out, it wasn't actually yet obvious that America was, like, bringing terror over the whole world.
Yeah, like this.
So that's, like, weirdly prophetic line.
Yeah, this hits different after, like, a million years of, like, a million military coups and shit.
No, literally, it's like on the precipice of that because literally right before it was World War II wrapped up, and then all that happened even faster and harder, especially in like Latin America. But I'm glad y'all are bringing up this historical context because there was one other thing that I wanted to mention. There was one character in the beginning of the movie that I found really fascinating. It was the old man in the town square when it's like after they wrangle up the pigs and maybe he goes back to work in a store. Maybe it's the same day. I don't remember off the top. But regardless,
this might be the old guy we enjoyed when we watched the movie. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. When he was talking about how like y'all are a bunch of milksops now. Back in my day, if this country was going to the dogs, we would have done something about it. Like, I feel like that character was there to kind of reflect the voice of the older generations of Americans, even in like the 1940s. Especially as like, I feel like working class consciousness was elevating and people were starting to question like, oh, hey, like, this is pretty fucked up. I could almost hear Kim Kardashian saying, get up off your ass and work when I was listening to that guy talk. I was like, wow, nothing's changed, and that's horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think executive producer press basically has a recurring shock of when we watch old movies about American politics or involved with it, where he just always goes, oh, nothing changed. And I think he's just traumatized by all the movies we watched where the result was, wow, America just is still the same.
Hey man, I'll let y'all know I'm doing my best to help make it better out here. I'm really trying.
Yeah, you're not to blame. We know. Yeah, my thing on the teams is, behind every ape, there is a strong woman.
Shout out Mary Todd.
Yeah, according to that one essay I read, it's kind of overblown how much she influenced his participation in politics. Because he was already kind of rearing to go. But the movie makes like a really big point that she's the one who really pushed him, you know. But it's unclear to me, you know, what the dynamics were there exactly. But it's interesting that this like 1940s movie makes the point that maybe a woman might have influence on something.
Wow. Fuck that.
Yeah. You get chosen, called even to power sometimes, is like the other team I kind of noticed. Because like it's not like Abe wants to be president for a lot of the movie. It's more like it gets called. Both of these movies have like a fate, predestination thing going on, I feel.
Yeah.
No, I think that's apparent for sure. Like, he's you know, he starts the movie with pretty chill aspirations. Like, he just kind of wants to, you know, be about his books. He like falls in love. He wants to focus on that, and bigger things come to him.
Yeah. And like in Young Mr. Lincoln, there's a whole scene with the stick at the grave where like fate basically decides that he's gonna go study law and shit.
Yeah, no, wasn't it like a coin toss or something he did? It was like...
It's like a stick that either it falls to the grave or away from the grave.
Yeah.
But maybe there's also a coin toss.
Good old American stick toss. Classic.
Okay, let's move on to cultural relevance of Young Mr. Lincoln. So this is where you can like really give your thoughts about America.
No.
Oh, I have so many. Oh wait, Alice, did you want to hop in? My bad.
Say something? No. Go first.
Sure. We kind of like started to delve into this a little bit when we were talking about the themes, but I just found it like so gnarly listening to the line like, oh look, they're veterans of the revolution. I just couldn't help but think about the way that veterans and the U.S. military is talked about and valorized now. Like, I think that was the thing about, you know, just watching the movie play out. Like, there are so many things that, like, still exist, like, in American culture. There's so many things that just, like, haven't changed. And even in, like, the smallest ways. Like, there's a little scene, it's, like, 10 seconds, or a little moment where it's, like, 10 seconds long, where these kids, like, fire a rock in a slingshot into the parade, right? And, you know, in my head, like, all I could think is boys will be boys. And fast forward today, we still have characters like Bart Simpson, Stewie Griffin even, like, this idea, like, just seeing the microcosms of gender roles and expectations for men and women, and, like, American citizens and duty to their country. Just like nothing's changed. It's the same circles that people are kind of making themselves sick in. And even, I think without trying to, the movie demonstrates how these things don't work. How they're not always equitable. Because not every, like we were talking about getting tasked with power and tasked with responsibility. that's a luxury afforded to very few, especially in the way that the U.S. like still works. Like, you know, as like for me speaking specifically as like a trans woman, like walking into a room, like I'm like rarely given credibility. People rarely trust the things that I have to say. And similarly, like my girlfriend, who is a woman of color, she's visibly brown, indigenous, and Mexican. Walking, and we work together very often. She's not always like given like the same like respect off rip from peers and counterparts we might interface with, working specifically in the film and entertainment industry, in the U.S. So, yeah, sorry, got a little off the rails there.
That's very good. But yeah, your first point there is very good. That like these stereotypes, like a lot of these media stereotypes, had already cemented by the 1930s, 40s. Like a lot of these depictions of Americana, basically.
Yeah,
interesting. Also, wow, I didn't even know you were like in the movie business. So now we really had a good guest.
I like, to keep it short, I've done art department on like student film productions and occasionally step in on like bigger sets, but I work more in the marketing sphere, you could say. Like I do a lot of work at like film premieres, specifically doing like experiential marketing activations, or like that's the business term, but I call them photo booths and like portrait setups.
That I can understand. The other weird marketing term that was like a bit high concept.
It's all hooey.
Yeah.
But like most recently, me and the little team that me and my friends are on, we built out a like portrait photo booth at. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me clear my throat. Okay. So most recently, like me and my friends, the little production team that we run, we built out a portrait setup at the new Sydney Sweeney movie premiere, where it's like a Catholic horror movie. And we were there for like guests, writers, producers, talent, anyone at the event that just wants a commemorative photo. And it has like the branding of the movie so that if and when it's like shared amongst friends or on social media, people see it. That's my extent right now.
Hey, you made it big.
I'm doing Hollywood, baby.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Alice.
Yeah.
The cultural relevance.
I feel like there's still aspects of this. There's, of course, this is like a film. It's English language is like very popular, mostly among like cinephiles and like film people, mostly because it's early Zanford movie and like Harry Potter is in it. So like in that aspect, so it's gonna be popular. But yeah, like I said, there's also the cultural aspect that this is just like America. So it's like this doesn't really say so like a lot about this like this type of like mythologizing of Lincoln peasants and like this type of mythologizing of, like American history. So it's gonna be like very popular to like a lot of extent. A lot of reasons like this, whatever. So those are and those as well. But yeah, a lot of was said. I feel like this stuff like this is just gonna always be relevant. It's like not just even America's like nations and people and stuff like it's just like it's a thing. Okay.
It's interesting because I came away with a totally different take. That this is mostly useful as an object of historical study.
Oh yeah.
Like you can look at the form of like propagandizing and like these cultural stereotypes that were there at the time very well through both of these movies.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically all I have to say for both of them. That they're like really interesting little looks in like how 1930s and 40s America perceived their past and like how they're like valorizing certain people and aspects of it.
Yeah.
And like what they don't mention, like slavery or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's my money.
What's next?
Abe Lincoln cultural relevance. Is there anything else here for you? Willa?
Pardon me. Wait, did you say for young Mr. Lincoln or Abe Lincoln, Illinois?
Abe Lincoln in Illinois. Is there anything else in the cultural relevance, or is it the same?
There are a couple similarities, but I think this one was like a little bit more, I guess, like on the nose. Like I feel like in young Mr. Lincoln, like there's less of an emphasis on like the physicality of him, but in Abe Lincoln, Illinois, it's like kind of like one of his defining features at the beginning. He's substantially taller than everyone. He takes out the best fighter in the town pretty handedly from the beginning. So like just this emphasis of strength, like physically kind of needing that to be there before someone could be strong mentally or before someone could even be like taken serious in that regard.
Yeah. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, and like it just feels so Make America Great Again. Like especially at this like upstart town that's at a pretty pivotal moment of like the town's development and history. They need someone truly American, truly fit to be a leader. And the only person fit to be a leader is the guy that can kick the other big dude's ass and can also tabulate votes. Like,
yeah, but it basically makes a might makes right, like meritocratic point, right?
yeah, actually, thank you for that language there. I think
like Abe Lincoln earned greatness because he's big, he's strong, and he's smart.
Literally, like not because he has like any like actual like history or desire or innovative ideas. He's classic. He's almost like he's not a politician that becomes a politician.
We gotta vote for this guy. He's built different.
Yeah.
Literally.
I'm saying better than what we got this year.
Yeah, good luck. Good luck, folks.
Oh, thanks.
Portugal already had its horror scenario, and in my politics, nothing ever happens.
God bless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
do you have something else for Abe Lincoln in Illinois?
no, I would agree. I think I'll just say as a movie, I feel like it's not going to be very relevant. I think it's the better movie, but I feel like it's like a lesser known thing, a lesser known movie. But if you want to know like about history and everything, I think it is still like an interesting case study. But I don't have a lot to say about it.
Okay. We're going towards the end. I don't have a lot of music, but the last meaty subject is going to be cinematography.
Yeah.
For young Mr. Lincoln. Willa.
Ooh, I'm excited about this. I'm gonna pull up some of the screen grabs that I grabbed watching these films.
Yeah, that's way smarter than what we do.
Yeah.
There's like this one particular shot. It's kind of like the camera's angled up at Abe or at Can you remind me the actor's name? I'm the worst with remembering actor names.
Henry Fonda.
Thank you. So there's a lot of scenes where the camera is pointed up at Henry Fonda, and off rip, there's one with him holding like a picnic basket. He has the book tucked underneath his arm, and then that scene kind of recurs throughout the movie. This very like stately, very deep depth of field. The background is very like I don't know the proper words to like describe the lens technology at the time, but the shape of the bokeh is kind of goes more in a circle around the main focal point or the main point of focus in the shot, and it's just so pretty. Like these shots just stuck out to me. Even in a similar later on in the movie, he's like eating a donut, or some type of treat at the fair, and it's like the same composition. I just really like that.
I noticed those weird shots too with the deep focus, or what it's called.
Like where there's a lot of bokeh.
Yeah, in the forest, I think, were some of those.
Right. And I also really love the use of, I guess, practical effects and like natural elements in movies that I think a lot of films don't really have to do anymore because of special effects, CGI, artificial intelligence. Watching these older movies, it's almost, well, not almost, it is a lo-fi experience now compared to how many cuts and just things added to doctor up movies. It's really fun to watch and to see how people get really creative.
Yeah, that's true. The parade is a very dynamic scene when it comes to like practical effects and like
right,
cool shots.
Like the acting of it all. Even the people there as extras have to be very much like engaged with what's going on and the story, understand what to do.
Yeah. What did I want to say? It's late. My brain is starting to turn off.
Wow.
Y'all got this.
It works, really, the cinematography in that movie works well. Like, I can feel the patriotism.
Yeah.
It frames a lot of, like, American symbols in a way that's, like, very propaganda-y, but it works,
Yeah. The only thing I have to say about the young Mr. Lincoln cinematography, like, two things. First, it's really interesting, like, mentioned before, how, like, Betty played, like, the Tyson is sort, because it's very much like you can see everyone, you can like very much focus on like certain characters. It's very interesting, specifically with how compact the actual stage they use is. That's a very interesting thing. Second thing, the director of this Zanford did like a lot of like westerns and stuff, and like he bought like somebody that filmed a lot of those westerns to film this with him, and you can notice a lot of like techniques that old westerns use in this, which I find very interesting.
Oh yeah, very much. Like there's a lot of stage details and props that are probably from other Western films in this.
Mm-hmm. So I find it interesting, but yeah, I think this cinematography is pretty good though. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. Good. Abe Lincoln in Illinois, cinematography. So now this is gonna be the ultimate test of your old Hollywood knowledge now.
Oh gosh.
Because did you know the cinematographer for this?
Oh wait, no, I didn't actually. I didn't look at the credits. Who was it?
I'm gonna tell you in a second. It's James Wong Howe, who was one of the earliest Chinese American cinematographers to work like in Hollywood.
Definitely a name that I remember that came up in my film classes. That's dang, that's striking. It's been I graduated a few years ago, so it's not as sharp as it could be, but something in Abe Lincoln in Illinois that I really, really liked is the use of people to frame scenes. Like there's I think one screen grab here I have of Anne Rutledge with like all the pardon me. I have a screen grab here of Anne Rutledge with all the townsfolk behind her as she's waving to Abe as I think he's like going to continue his pig journey. Also when she's eventually like pretty soon after like cornered by all like the ruffians trying to steal all the alcohol. And similar like with the shots with Henry Fonda in Young Mr. Lincoln, these upshots of I think in Abe Lincoln, Illinois, it's Raymond Massey. When he's like swearing in to tabulate the votes, it almost looks like he's taking the oath of the presidency. He's taking that shit really serious. His monologuing is crazy too, and it's still in that very reverent, like this very reverent shot pointing with the camera pointing up at him. And ultimately, when he wins the election, like similarly, like there's a massive crowd around like the room and floor that he's staying in, and it kind of is pulling my attention to this point of interest, and then it cuts to it. I really liked it. I thought it was pretty effective, especially for the time.
Yeah, I had to with both of these movies when the big crowds happened. Sometimes I had to like think a bit of Eisenstein,
Yeah.
like and how he uses crowds to like these dynamic compositions and stuff.
Yeah.
I wonder if they were like taking some notes, over there in America.
Yeah.
They must have been.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Yeah. Apparently, James Wan was mostly known for like popularizing soft focus, where you like do a focus shot that's not. I guess the focus is not really totally aligned. It's like just soft focused.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah, I sadly forgot where I found that info. I didn't source that.
Wow, fucked
but
up. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
but it is interesting seeing like that technique present at the time before, I guess, a lot of new tech, like not only like technical devices but technique was developed. Seeing different ways that filmmakers use the limitations at the time in creative means, or as they use the limitations creatively, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Because I feel like now most of the things that I see, everything is like tack sharp, if that's the point of focus.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to our last segment. Music. I basically have almost no notes on this. We often don't do a lot for music if there's not like a score that's different from orchestral.
I don't have anything to say. Yeah.
Okay. I just have one note. I guess I know what a Jew's harp is now. Because I legit didn't know. I just knew that instrument and the sound it makes, but I never knew the name before I watched Young Mr.
Oh, yeah,
Lincoln.
that's instrument, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh dang!
So I learned something from these movies.
Wow, you learned it.
Okay. Do you have something about the music in these movies, Willa?
Just honestly, just a quick note. Like I felt like as I was watching Young Mr. Lincoln, it felt quieter. I don't know if that was like the sound mixing or like the types of music that it used. And then in Abe Lincoln and Illinois, where I think there was a lot of other things being utilized to like move the story along and move us through, basically move the viewer through time. I definitely flagged a lot of like old school American songs.
Yeah.
Like kind of like I think I heard Yankee Doodle at one point. I also heard like, oh man, I am like trying to find it in my notes to find the other.
Apparently, one of the songs that came up in one of these movies was actually not written at the time it is played diegetically in one of the movies.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Because there was still like a whole 100 years of like culture, quote unquote, building in the U.S.
And some of those like Civil War, I guess, songs weren't really big before the Civil War or weren't written yet.
Right. Only in which kind of I think adds to like how they make him seem like larger than life.
Yeah.
So, and the music being louder in the one that was more like phenomenological, I thought that made sense. It's just something that struck me, but yeah, in terms of tone, not too different. It was effective, I suppose. Like, used as a tool pretty well.
Yeah, that's the impression I got too. Okay, I think everybody is getting sleepy.
Yeah.
At least we Europeans are getting sleepy.
Yeah. Yes, I have a whole my whole day ahead of me over here.
What's the overall takeaway from these movies? For me, it's basically wow, America.
Yeah, wow, America for me. Yeah.
I want more Americans to revisit this movie and just maybe use it as the jumping off point to think a little more critically about some of the issues that we're currently facing. and the same cycles that we seem to be trapped in. Because at this point, like, you know, it's almost a campy experience watching these movies. But
Yeah.
I don't think it truly is camp yet in like the cringe camp based normcore cycle that everything exists in. I don't think it's quite camp yet because America is still in the throes of the same exact system. Like, the structure of government has hardly changed. And the ideals we have hardly changed. Popular dominant sentiments have hardly changed. So it was kind of a trip getting to like go back and experience these, and I feel like see a reflection of ideals from that time, and it's informing how I want to continue like navigating, I guess, like as a citizen on the continental United States. Like, how can I maybe be a better steward for change, and so to speak.
Yeah, you gotta become the labeling.
Yeah, I just gotta transition to become a phallus.
And then wrestle some people.
Yeah, that's it.
I'm all set.
Okay. So let's walk us out. Do you want to give us your plugs if you have any, Will?
My pardon? Where am I?
Plugs, basically, like
plugs.
social media or something
pardon
you
me.
want to show.
Sorry. Once again, my name is Willa. My pronouns are she, her. I work as a photographer, videographer, and lighting technician in Los Angeles. If you're interested in seeing some of my photography and keeping up with me a little bit, you can follow me on Instagram at willa.camera. That's also the link to my photography website. I'm hoping to have a newsletter coming soon. So if you're at all interested in portraiture, community-based events, and you just want to talk shop about cameras, lighting, or anything, feel free to shoot me a message.
Cool. Alice?
Alice Lovato on Twitter, Blue Sky, Twitch, I have a Patreon. I'll link it in the description, as always. Ludo.
Ludovico_limited on Coast. That's all I got. Support Alice on Patreon. Yeah. Next time we're gonna talk about 2 movies, and executive producer press chose them.
Yeah.
They are Ronnie Run, and Joe Dirt.
Yeah.
Do you know any of these, Will?
Oh, I know a thing or two about Joe Dirt. I have so much fun. Oh, cool. I'm glad y'all are going to get some, perhaps a little more modern, more funny titles.
Okay. So, everybody have a good time, and goodbye.
See you.
Yeah. Be safe out there, y'all. Thanks so much for having me.